So, good afternoon to everyone. Myself, Dr. Subhranshu Padhe, and I am associated with Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Sambalpur University Institute of Information Technology, Bulla. And today we are going to discuss the paper of Research and Publication Ethics. And this is a Ph.D. coursework mandatory by UGC 2 credit course. So, the syllabus comprises of 3 different units in theory and 3 different units in practice: philosophy and ethics, scientific conduct, and publication ethics. So we are today dealing with the second part, that is scientific conduct. Once the scientific conduct, so over here the reference book. This is the scheme of evaluation. This is basically suitable for SUIIT only. And so first of all, what is research? Research basically is a systematic investigation, including research development, testing, and evaluation, designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. So basically, we have to investigate a certain subject and develop and test and evaluate the particular matter and develop a prototype for the same. And that is basically a research. So why should we do research? What is the motivation of the research? Research will provide you a advanced knowledge on the topic. It leads to discoveries that will benefit the individual as well as the society. It will lead to professional advancement, like after PhD, after doctorate, after research, you are going to be a research professor as such, and there will be a financial gain. Once you go up in the ladder, up in the hierarchy, there will be obviously the financial gain will be there in academic sector. So what are the rules for responsible conduct of research? So there are different kind of rules. There are professional codes, government regulations, institutional policies, personal convictions. So professional codes means, suppose I am in electrical electronics domain, so I will follow IEEE standards, or I will follow a mechanical engineering, they will follow ASME standards. In civil engineering, they will follow ASCE standards, so on and so forth. Uh, so the standards are very much important. They are very deliberately developed by professional bodies. Then coming to the government regulations, as in India, we are in India because the government has certain rules and regulations to conduct research, and we need to follow that rules and regulation. The institutional policy, I am associated with a particular institute, so I have to follow the norms, institutional norms, and that kind of norms needs to be followed. And then professional conviction or personal conviction. The personal conviction is basically what I believe is important to conduct a research. In research, there are different things. One, the most important thing in research is data. Data and management of data in research is utmost important. And during management of data, ownership, collection, storage, and sharing of data is important. The ownership is who owns the data, basically. Whether I own the data or somebody else owns the data, and how the data has been collected. Whether the data has been collected from any newspaper, any database, any archive material, or primary source of collection or secondary source of collection, that should be understood. And the storage, how the data is stored, whether the data is stored in a digital uh, platform, whether it is stored in a cloud platform, whether it is stored in any other platform, and sharing. What is the sharing and sharing rights of the data? Whether I am using the data, how I am sharing with my collaborators, how I am sharing the data with my team members. That is also important data management aspect. Now, coming to the collection of the data, whenever I am collecting any amount of data, any form of data, I have to be whether I am collecting a human or animal subjects in research, whether I am dealing with the biological materials, hazardous materials, whether I am collecting data from libraries, database, and archives, whether I am collecting data from the websites or photographs from published information or copyrighted material, that needs to be understood. That needs to be authorized. Once the authorization is required for any kind of data that is I am using for my research, proper authorization. Now, coming to the misconduct, scientific misconduct, that is authorization, taking authorization of the data is scientific conduct. Now, what is the misconduct? Misconduct is intentional distortion of research process by fabrication of data, text, hypothesis, or methods from another researcher's manuscript or publication, or distortion of research process in any other kind of way. According to US Office of Research Integrity, there are three different kind of scientific misconduct, that is fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. This needs to be avoided if we are going for a ethical conduct of research. Now, we will come to the fabrication and falsification part later. We will see some of the high profile cases of research misconduct. The students of biotechnology and genetics will be aware of a famous dispute between the father of genetics, Dr. Gregor Mendel, and Ronald A. Fisher. The dispute was because of the law of inheritance. The law of inheritance proposed by the Gregor Mendel, and why Ronald A. Fisher had a dispute of the particular law. And it was a long drawn, it is a well documented, well established fact. The students of biotechnology or genetics will be aware of this. In 2011, in recent times, different politicians in German defense minister, the German education minister, the Iranian minister of education and science, Iranian minister of transport, the Serbian interior minister, they resigned after plagiarism was found in their PhD thesis. So these are relatively recent cases, and these cases are going on to increase. And once there is a scientific misconduct, one needs not sweep it down the carpet. One needs to have a proper investigation of the scientific misconduct that may have been occurred. Now, coming to the history of violation of scientific conduct and international codes. In 1939 to 1972, Tuskegee syphilis studies was conducted by U.S. Public Health Services and Center of Disease Control and Prevention. They unethically conducted research on 400 African American males. They didn't inform the African American males about the um, consequences of their study, the aim of their study, and they went on carrying this particular experiment for 40 long years. So around 40 long years. Similarly, who can forget the uh, atrocities conducted by Germans in their concentration camps where Jews were gassed? And who can forget the Joseph Mengele, the devil of death, the German SS officer who conducted inhuman experimentation on the prisoners of the concentration camp? Though there by those time there were some international guidelines there, like guidelines of human experimentation in 1931 and Berlin Code in 1900, but they were vehemently rejected by the very nature of the work, and they were not at all adhered to. From 1944 to 1980, the US government sponsored a research which studied the effect of radiation on uninformed subjects, including cancer patients, pregnant women, and military personnel. In 1971, a very well-known psychological experiment, the Stanford Prison Experiment, was conducted by the Professor Philip Zimbardo, and the consequences of these kind of experiments were well documented over the series. Um, you can also look into this in over the internet. That's why after the World War II, there were Nuremberg trial, and in Nuremberg trial, many of the doctors and their administrators were charged, they were tried, and 7 were sentenced to death, 9 were given prison terms, and the Nuremberg trial was the trial after World War II, where doctors and their perpetrators of World War II were also subjected to legal procedures. That's why from the Nuremberg trials, we have Nuremberg Code of Medical Ethics. The Nuremberg Code of Medical Ethics provide a 10 principle guidelines for physicians as well as investigators in different experiments involving human subjects. And over the years, in June 1964, the Declaration of Helsinki was there. The World Medical Association developed Declaration of Helsinki in Finland as a statement of ethical principles for medical research involving human subjects. But still then, in 1953, James Watson Francis and Francis Crick discovered the structure of DNA after secretly obtaining diffraction data from Rosalind Franklin and without her prior permission. In 1956 to 1970, Willowbrook hepatitis study were conducted on mentally retarded children. They were intentionally given hepatitis to track the development of the infection. In 1966, Henry K. Beecher exposed 22 unethical studies in an article in a reputed journal called the New England Journal of Medicine. We have Belmont report, we have CIOMS guidelines, we have International Conference on Harmonization. All are there, but still there are sufficient history of the scientific misconduct. And in 2010, many of the papers of Lancet were retracted. Lancet retracted the paper by Andrew Wakefield, where the paper linked autism to measles vaccine, which is a medically unfit claim. And the Nature journal, the highest regarded journal, retracted 2 high-profile papers by Haruko Obagato on the grounds of fabricated and falsified data. In 2016, NIS placed a temporary ban on experiments which involves human-animal chimera. So these are all the history and remedial action taken by the different societies and different international standards to streamline the scientific conduct of research. So this is a very basic review of very basic intention of talking about what is scientific research and what is scientific conduct of research and what is scientific misconduct and what happens if we are going to have a scientific misconduct. Next video series we will talk about the other aspects. Thank you.